future is now.
Hi, everyone. Cheryl Cran here, really wanting to share with you sort of a post-leadership retreat, post-leadership consulting dialogues that I have been having in the last few weeks. I've had a number of conversations with CEOs and their senior leadership teams around what does it mean to work together collaboratively in a hybrid environment. And, just by the nature of hybrid, everyone has been challenged since, we've gone hybrid in our workplace. And yes, some companies like Disney are now asking everybody to come back for 4 days. But what's not been reported is Disney's considering the 4-day work week. So as much as it sounds like, oh yeah, they're ordering everybody back, they're making a huge systemic change towards the 4-day work week, which many organizations, they like the concept, but they haven't gotten to the structural ability to make that change widespread throughout their organization. From a human standpoint, from a people standpoint, we're now at a place, if you look at our evolution since 2019, we're now at a place where technology is making and progressing rapidly enough for us to leverage the technology tools even more than we ever have before, and to really look at communication as multi-layered, and to really look at communication as something that every one of us needs to develop at a mastery level. And to really, in order to collaborate, taking personal responsibility for what mastery level communication looks like. So, for example, at a recent retreat that I just facilitated with the senior leadership team, we talked about rules of engagement. So things like, before you send an email, ask yourself, is this an email? Is this a phone call? Is this an instant message? Is this a virtual call over Zoom or Teams? Is this a phone call? And I think the time for that really is important now, because when we rely purely on texting or messaging or email, as everyone already knows, there's a lot of assumption and miscommunication that gets built into those forms of communication. And so then what happens is the trust factor between us erodes and it actually hinders collaboration, because trust diminishes when people don't communicate with us in a way that helps us feel like we're being seen, heard, and that our perspective is being considered. So I would say, as a hybrid workplace, communication rules of engagement, the number one thing is we all have to elevate our perspectives. We have to be asking ourselves, who am I about to communicate with? What do I know about him or her or them? Do I know that they are more of an analytical type, a detailer type? They prefer email listed out with the points? Or is it someone more social? And if I don't spend the time to talk with him, her, or them, I'm going to actually create a feeling of disconnect, or that they don't feel included. This particular retreat that I facilitated was hybrid. The majority of us were in person, and there was one leader who was not. And so it was really important that that person be made to feel included, and that we considered his perspective throughout the retreat. I'm happy to say that at the end, when we got the feedback in the survey, that person said that he felt like we really made an extra effort. He actually felt special because of the effort everyone made to include him, even though he was a hybrid participant in this session. So I think what's really important is remembering that when we're communicating, that whole adage of out of sight, out of mind really comes to play. And I call it distance bias. It's a bias where, because we can't see people or because they work remote, we're not factoring their perspective in. They're not down the hall in an office. So if you're an in-office worker primarily, you will have what I call distance bias, which is your bias to the coworkers that you see down the hall or that you see in the office, because it's right in front of your face. It's right there, top of mind. So a lot of times it's simple to just remind yourself, having a visual reminder to check in with your remote teams, or even, further to communication mastery, when you're about to click an email or when you're about to send a piece of a project piece that needs to be done, thinking to yourself, who else needs to know about this? Who will be blindsided by this if I don't include them? Who do I need to ask their input for to ensure that I've got well-rounded content prior to sending this out? It's funny because in addition to that, not every organization, it depends on the size of the organization, but not every organization has communication built in to their HR structures or to their executive communication structures. So it's really important that we make communication an intentional piece of how we run our business. So asking ourselves questions such as, who's going to communicate specific items in the business. So for example, who's going to communicate structural changes to how we manage our employees? Who's going to communicate decisions that impact the senior leaders? Who's going to communicate? So these are things that already are being pre-decided upon. In other words, they're not things that people haven't been included on, but we need to have communicators. We need to have point people, because what happens if we don't do that is we do get what I call distributed or convoluted communication, where you've got too many people communicating, and then it gets diluted and it erodes trust as well. So it's really important that in an organization, we know who's clearly communicating, what they're communicating. And I think even further to communication and collaboration is many organizations right now, and I'm helping a number of organizations that I'm working with, get really clear on who, not only who does what, and especially in hybrid, that can get blurred lines. We can get confused about who's doing what and what pieces of the work people are doing. Really important to sort that clarity out between yourself and your teams and your boss and your senior leadership group, but also then communicating to your people what those things are. So you're actually saying things like, this has happened and this is communicated and this is what's going to happen with it. So we're being very clear on the communication protocols, the communication lines, and we're being clear on who does what. So if I'm a leader and I know what's happening in my department, but I haven't communicated that to my colleagues, my peers, and I also haven't communicated to my people that engage with my department, then I'm actually creating more confusion and I'm eroding trust and I'm creating more frustration. Great example of that is IT. IT department, a lot of things are happening, a lot of decisions being made. But if IT isn't continually communicating to the end users around who handles what tickets and who does what and who to best go to and manage those expectations of time and response and solution, then that too erodes trust. So the thing about hybrid and communication and collaboration is communication needs to be more intentional, needs to be crystal clear. Who does what? How do we best handle? Who do we go to? And every department really getting clear on who does what. And so one of the things I suggest to my clients is, in addition to an org chart, which many people don't really ever refer to except once a year when revisiting strategy or revisiting mission, vision, and values, is to have, sort of a chart of who does what in your SharePoint or in your central system, where people can go, oh, I'm going to be interacting with this department. Okay, who does what again? So that we know who we're going to, and that we're not going to the same people all the time, and those people are having to redirect us. So really, in 2023 and beyond, I really think, it's more about leveraging our human-to-human contact. It's more about being respectful about how to best work with each other. And it's really more about being overtly clear about who's doing what. And I think if we do those things, we're going to have better success in hybrid, better success with our in-office, better success in creating more trust, and much more success in people feeling empowered about where to go when they have questions or they need clarity. So in this short, brief podcast, it's all about, we need to get really clear. We need to be creating trust and communication, get really masterful at communication in order to up-level collaboration to the next highest level.